God is revealing why they turned against you. This was planned. Listen carefully, because what is being revealed now was hidden on purpose. The confusion you felt, the sudden shift in loyalty, the cold distance that appeared without warning, none of it was random. Heaven is pulling back the veil, and what you are about to understand will change how you see your past, your pain, and the people who turned against you. Archangel Michael stands as a witness to this truth. You were not betrayed because you were weak. You were targeted because you were becoming powerful. The moment God began accelerating your growth, the moment your discernment sharpened and your spirit matured, a plan was activated against you. Not overnight, but carefully. Quietly. Strategically. You felt it first as discomfort. Conversations changed. Support became silence. Familiar faces carried unfamiliar energy. You questioned yourself, wondering if you had done something wrong. But the truth is sharper than that. Your alignment with God disrupted agreements that were never meant to last. Your obedience threatened people who benefited from you staying small, silent, or dependent. This is where the plot began. Some of them saw your favor before you did. They noticed doors opening, protection surrounding you, wisdom flowing through you. And instead of celebrating, they calculated. They smiled while gathering information. They listened not to understand, but to report. What you thought was vulnerability became data. What you thought was trust became leverage. Archangel Michael reveals that jealousy was only the surface emotion. Underneath it was fear. Fear that when God elevated you, their access would end. Fear that once you stepped fully into your calling, their manipulation would no longer work. Fear that the truth you carry would expose the lies they built their identity on. So they agreed, some silently, some openly, to resist what God was doing in you. Notice this, the resistance didn't come as open attack at first. It came as misunderstanding, as subtle opposition, as people questioning your intentions, your character, your motives. That was deliberate. The enemy's strategy was to make you doubt yourself before you ever doubted them. To exhaust you emotionally so you'd shrink back voluntarily. But you didn't. Even wounded, you kept moving forward. Even confused, you kept praying. Even isolated, you stayed aligned. And that's when the plan intensified. That's when the masks slipped, the alliances formed, the narrative shifted. They needed you to look like the problem, because if the truth came out too soon, the entire structure would collapse. Here is what Archangel Michael wants you to understand now. God allowed you to see the betrayal in stages for your protection. If you had known everything at once, the weight would have been too heavy. So heaven revealed it layer by layer, season by season, letting your strength catch up to the truth. And now, you are strong enough. This is why memories are resurfacing. This is why certain moments suddenly make sense. This is why names, faces, and conversations are coming back with clarity instead of confusion. God is not reopening wounds to hurt you. He is closing chapters with understanding so you stop blaming yourself for what was never your fault. Stay with this message. Let it settle. If your spirit feels stirred, that's confirmation. And if you feel led, gently support this channel. Your presence here helps these messages reach others who are waking up too. Because what comes next is critical. The plan against you did not succeed, but it did leave evidence. And in the next revelation, Archangel Michael exposes who initiated it, why it failed, and what God is about to do publicly that will leave them with no defense at all. Now hear this clearly, because the second layer of truth carries weight and responsibility. The plan against you did not begin with hatred. It began with observation. Long before the betrayal became visible, eyes were already on you. Not because you were loud, but because your spirit carried authority even in silence. Archangel Michael reveals that some people studied you more than they supported you. They watched how you prayed, how you recovered, how you endured. They were taking notes while pretending to stand beside you. This is why the turning felt sudden to you, but coordinated among them. One conversation happened here. A comment was planted there. A doubt was whispered, not shouted. The strategy relied on time. They believed that if they repeated a lie long enough, it would sound like truth. If they questioned your character quietly enough, others would join without asking for proof. This is how spiritual sabotage works. It borrows human mouths but carries a darker intention. But here is where the plan fractured. They underestimated God's covering over you. Archangel Michael declares that every attempt to isolate you actually pushed you deeper into divine alignment. Every rumor forced you closer to prayer. Every rejection sharpened your discernment. What they meant to weaken you refined you. And while they were busy coordinating against you, heaven was coordinating for you. This is important. Not everyone who turned against you was a mastermind. Some were followers. Some were influenced. Some were spiritually asleep. But there was an initiator. Someone who felt replaced by your growth. Someone who realized that once you stepped fully into who God called you to be, their influence would fade. Instead of evolving, they conspired. And yet, even that person was limited. Archangel Michael reveals that God set boundaries around how far this plan could go. That's why certain things didn't fully collapse. That's why some doors stayed open when they expected them to shut. That's why the attack stopped short of destroying you. What looked like partial loss was actually divine containment. Now you're beginning to see the evidence. You're noticing inconsistencies in their stories, contradictions in their behavior, moments where the truth almost came out, but got swallowed by silence. That's not coincidence. That's pressure. Truth creates pressure on lies, and that pressure is increasing daily. This is also why some of them are restless now. They thought the season passed. They assumed you moved on without understanding. But heaven does not forget. Archangel Michael says the same eyes that watched you are now watching their own foundations crack. The same mouths that spoke against you are becoming cautious. Because when God decides to reveal truth, He does not need your defense, He becomes it. Pay attention to how your emotions are changing. You're no longer desperate for explanation. You're calm, grounded, clear. That shift alone is proof that the plan failed. Peace is the byproduct of alignment, and you are standing in it now. If this message is resonating, if you feel clarity replacing confusion, know this: your support matters. When you use the thanks button, you're not just giving appreciation. You're helping keep these messages visible, protected, and reaching others who are still questioning what happened to them. It's a quiet way of partnering with the mission without breaking the sacred flow of the message. Now listen closely to this next truth. God is not only revealing why they turned against you, He is preparing to expose how they did it. Patterns, timelines, connections. Things you overlooked before will align like pieces of a puzzle. And when they do, you won't feel anger. You'll feel release. Because understanding ends self-blame. Archangel Michael declares that you were chosen to outgrow environments that relied on your silence. You were meant to disrupt comfort zones built on control. The betrayal was not proof that you failed, it was proof that you were no longer manageable. And this is where anticipation builds. Some of the very people who doubted you will soon witness your elevation without having access to it. Some who spoke against you will be forced to acknowledge your growth silently. Not because you demand it, but because God will make it undeniable. Stay attentive. Stay grounded. And stay with this message. Because the next revelation exposes the moment heaven marked the plan as defeated, and the sign God is about to release that confirms you were never meant to stay where they tried to keep you. There was a precise moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable, when heaven intervened and marked the plan against you as defeated. It didn't happen when they first turned. It didn't happen when the words were spoken or the alliances formed. It happened when you chose obedience over reaction. When you resisted the urge to explain yourself. When you stayed aligned even though walking away would have been easier. Archangel Michael reveals that this was the turning point. In the unseen realm, your restraint spoke louder than any defense ever could. While they expected you to react emotionally, to expose yourself through anger or desperation, you stayed grounded. You prayed instead of retaliating. You reflected instead of accusing. And that choice disarmed strategies you never even knew were being used. This is critical to understand. The plan depended on you breaking character. They needed you to respond out of pain so they could justify what they had already decided to do. They needed proof that their narrative was correct. But you didn't give it to them. You stayed steady while they grew frantic. You healed while they stayed invested in the story. That's when heaven stepped in fully. Archangel Michael declares that once God saw your heart remain pure under pressure, authority was reassigned. What they tried to block was rerouted. What they tried to delay was rescheduled. What they tried to destroy was reinforced. From that moment forward, the outcome was no longer negotiable. This is why things began shifting subtly afterward. Opportunities didn't disappear, they changed form. Relationships didn't end, they revealed truth. What felt like loss was actually redirection. God was removing you from spaces that could no longer contain what you were becoming. And although it hurt at the time, that separation saved you from deeper harm later. Now you're starting to recognize the signs. You see how certain conversations no longer trigger you. How certain names no longer carry power. How the need for validation has dissolved. That's not emotional numbness, that's spiritual maturity. Archangel Michael says this is what happens when a plan fails. The target outgrows the battlefield. But here is the part many don't expect. When a plan collapses in the spiritual realm, there is always residue in the natural one. Loose ends. Unspoken truths. Unfinished consequences. That's why God is preparing a sign, not for revenge, but for closure. A moment where clarity arrives without you having to chase it. This sign will not be loud at first. It may come as a confession you weren't expecting, an apology that feels late but revealing, a truth spoken accidentally, or a situation where you're vindicated without saying a word. Archangel Michael says this sign will confirm what you already sense, that the betrayal was real, the strategy was intentional, and your intuition was accurate all along. And when that confirmation arrives, something will break permanently. Not you, but the hold the past had on you. You will no longer replay moments trying to understand what went wrong. You will no longer second-guess your discernment. The questions that haunted you will lose their urgency. Because truth, once revealed, removes confusion at its root. This is also why patience is required right now. Some of what God is exposing cannot be rushed. If revealed too early, it would be dismissed. If revealed too forcefully, it would be denied. So heaven is allowing the truth to surface naturally, in ways that cannot be argued against. In ways that speak for themselves. Archangel Michael emphasizes this: do not interfere with the process. You don't need to confront. You don't need to prove. You don't need to revisit what already ended. Your stillness is part of the victory. Your silence is not weakness, it's trust. And trust accelerates divine timing. Pay attention to how your life is expanding while theirs feels stagnant. That contrast is not accidental. It's evidence. Evidence that alignment produces growth, and deception eventually consumes itself. And now, something even deeper is unfolding. The exposure is not only about them. It's about you stepping into a higher level of responsibility. With clarity comes calling. With understanding comes assignment. God did not allow you to survive this just to feel better. He prepared you to lead differently, to see clearly, to protect what others overlook. This is where your story shifts from survival to purpose. Archangel Michael declares that the wisdom you gain through this betrayal will soon be required. Someone will cross your path carrying confusion you recognize. Someone will need discernment you now possess. And because you healed properly, you will not project pain, you will offer clarity. Stay alert. Stay humble. Stay aligned. Because the next revelation uncovers what God is about to restore in your life that directly replaces what was taken, and why this restoration will be visible to those who doubted you most. Now the focus shifts from what was exposed to what is being restored. This is the part many people misunderstand, because God never restores randomly. Restoration is precise, intentional, measured. Archangel Michael reveals that what is coming into your life next is not a replacement in form, but in function. God is not giving you the same thing back. He is giving you something that does the job better, lasts longer, and aligns deeper with who you have become. What they tried to take created a vacancy. And heaven does not leave vacancies unfilled. You may have noticed subtle returns already. Confidence returning without arrogance. Authority returning without striving. Joy returning without dependency. These are not emotional fluctuations. These are signs that restoration has already begun internally, and internal restoration always comes before external manifestation. Archangel Michael declares that God waited until your identity was no longer attached to what you lost. Because if restoration had come earlier, you would have clung to it in fear. Now, you will steward it in peace. This is where visibility enters the story. What God restores will be noticeable. Not exaggerated. Not forced. But undeniable. People who once questioned you will quietly observe the shift. They will see you grounded where you used to be anxious. Stable where you used to be uncertain. Protected where you used to be exposed. And what unsettles them most is this: you didn't become bitter. You became better. That alone is evidence of divine involvement. Archangel Michael reveals that some of the same people who distanced themselves will attempt to re-enter, curious, cautious, unsure how to approach you now. This is not reconciliation by default. Discernment is required. Restoration does not mean reopening every door. It means recognizing which doors God closed permanently to preserve your future. Do not confuse familiarity with alignment. God is restoring access to environments that match your maturity, opportunities that respect your boundaries, connections that don't require you to shrink to be accepted. This is why you feel less urgency to chase what once mattered. You are being repositioned, not replaced. Now hear this carefully. The restoration phase also brings community, but not crowds. God sends aligned people gradually, so trust can be built without pressure. These are individuals who don't need convincing. They recognize your spirit without explanation. They support without competing. They celebrate without envy. This is where deeper learning begins. If you feel drawn to go deeper into messages like this, beyond the surface, beyond the noise, there is a quiet invitation available to you. The join button exists for those who want consistent, members-only messages, extended insights, and deeper prophetic understanding in a protected space. It's not about status, it's about alignment. A place where growth is nurtured, not rushed. Those who join are not ahead, they are simply ready for more responsibility in understanding what God is doing in this season. Now back to the revelation. Archangel Michael says restoration will confront those who doubted you, not through arguments, but through contrast. Your peace will speak. Your consistency will speak. Your progress will speak. And the absence of chaos in your life will expose the chaos they tried to project onto you. Some will feel remorse. Some will feel exposed. Some will pretend not to notice. That is not your concern. Your assignment is to remain aligned as blessings increase. To remain humble as recognition returns. To remain discerning as access opens. Because restoration tests character just as much as betrayal did. This is why God allowed the delay. You needed time to grow roots deep enough to support what's coming. What God restores now will not be fragile. It will not require constant defense. It will not collapse under opinion. It will stand, because you stand differently now. And here is the final truth of this segment. Restoration is not the end of the story. It is the setup. What God gives back to you will place you in positions where truth matters, where discernment is required, where your past pain becomes future protection. For you and for others. You are not returning to the old version of your life. You are stepping into a new level of stewardship. Stay alert. Stay grounded. Because the final revelation uncovers what God is about to do next that no one can interfere with, and why the plan against you ultimately became the very reason your destiny accelerated. This is where everything converges, where the exposure, the restraint, the restoration, and the waiting finally reveal their purpose. Archangel Michael declares that what God is about to do next is irreversible. No meeting can stop it. No opinion can delay it. No hidden plan can redirect it. The very resistance meant to derail you became the force that accelerated your destiny. Here is the truth many never see until the end: opposition sharpens assignment. When they planned against you, they unknowingly trained you. They forced discernment to mature. They compelled your faith to deepen. They pressed you into prayer until obedience became instinct. And now, the version of you that stands here cannot be handled the way the old version was. You see clearly. You move deliberately. You no longer bleed in rooms that profit from your pain. Archangel Michael reveals that heaven marked you for expansion the moment you chose integrity over vindication. That choice unlocked a sequence: connections aligning without effort, doors opening without explanation, favor arriving without negotiation. This is not luck. This is recompense. Not payback, but repayment. God is restoring time, clarity, and momentum. Watch the timing. What unfolds next will feel swift compared to the delay you endured. Decisions will be confirmed quickly. Opportunities will make sense immediately. You won't need excessive signs because peace will accompany the yes. That is how you'll know it's God: clarity without chaos, movement without anxiety. Some will notice and ask how it happened. You don't owe them the full story. Your testimony is not a courtroom defense. It is a living witness. Let your consistency answer questions your mouth no longer needs to explain. Let your fruit speak louder than the rumors ever did. Let your calm disarm the curiosity of those who doubted quietly and watched from a distance. Archangel Michael emphasizes this boundary: protect what God entrusts to you next. Not everyone deserves access to the restored version of you. Not every invitation is alignment. Not every compliment is sincere. Discernment remains your safeguard. You don't need to isolate, but you do need to choose wisely. Stewardship is the new test. And now, the final exposure. The plan against you failed because it was built on a misunderstanding of who you are. They thought your kindness meant weakness. They thought your patience meant ignorance. They thought your silence meant agreement. But heaven knew the truth: you were disciplined, discerning, and protected. That miscalculation sealed their defeat. Archangel Michael declares that the truth will continue surfacing, not dramatically, but decisively. People will connect dots on their own. Timelines will align. Stories will unravel without you lifting a finger. And when it becomes undeniable, you will feel something unexpected: compassion without compromise. Because healing doesn't harden you. It clarifies you. You are stepping into a season where your voice carries weight even when you're quiet. Where your presence shifts rooms without effort. Where your decisions ripple outward, affecting others for good. This is why God guarded you through confusion. Your future influence required it. Listen closely to this final instruction. Do not rush the elevation. Walk at the pace of peace. Build what lasts. Choose what aligns. And when old memories try to resurface without invitation, release them without replay. You have already learned what you needed from that chapter. Archangel Michael stands as witness. What was planned against you has been overturned into purpose. What was meant to stall you has positioned you. What was meant to silence you has refined your authority. And now, a new question rises, one that lingers beyond this message. What happens when the very people who doubted you are forced to learn from you? And when God places you in rooms they can no longer access? Stay alert. Stay aligned. Because this ending is only the beginning of a higher calling. One that will require everything you've become.